Today, I'm sharing with you what I do often, which is cut up my art table paper, the paper that covers my art table that gets filled with all kinds of things, and cut them into squares and rectangles and other shapes, such as houses, and I glue them into one of my art journals. I have a bunch of scraps here, and today I am definitely doing that. I pulled out my big moleskin sketchbook, my super large one, because I wanted to glue down some large pieces, and I'm going to share with you how I do that. But first, I have to go through this big pile and figure out what I'm going to use, either for the squares or the rectangles, or if I'm going to use them for some more house shapes, because I've had a lot of fun doing that, and the videos were successful that I shared, and I still have pieces that are cut with angles, and I think that those angles would give me more of an opportunity to make more houses. So the first thing I'm doing is sometimes I will tape down a piece if it gets really hard to cut, but I'm using my viewfinder, which is two L-shaped pieces of cardstock. And I use it to find the square or the rectangle that I want to use. And it helps me really zero in on the design that I want to capture. So you can see here that I'm choosing some triangles over the squares or rectangles, and even really small triangles, as you saw before, because I'm just sort of mining for different expressions of whether it be a house that I can build from these pieces of collage, or more grid or swatches that I can glue down into my art journal. Now, this particular piece of paper is simply a watercolored paper that has a stamp pattern on top. And I will throw those sort of elements in there within my mix to kind of ground it and add more interest. Now, this particular swatch of paper I was really enamored with, and I did use a large portion of them on some of the houses that I collaged with earlier. But you can see I still have some triangles cut, some angles that would make perfect roofs. And so I'm looking at that perspective as I'm going through these different pieces of paper. But this particular piece of paper really spoke to me. And it seems very clear to me that I will be doing some more house collages very soon. So as I'm using this viewfinder, I'm trying to find the right angle, trying to capture all the color, the composition, so that it will work to the pleasure of my eye. You know, I want to be able to look at it and go, oh, this really makes me happy. This really tells me more of a story than I was expecting to see. And when I say story, I'm talking about the story of the colors that are being told, the mood that is being expressed from any particular piece, or if there's something botanical or organic in it that speaks to me. That is what I'm referencing when I'm talking about a story. Now, of course, certainly they could go on and tell a bigger story once you start introducing characters or subjects or objects, such as birds or trees or houses or people. But right now, we're just keeping it pretty abstract. I really like this green, these two tones, and I like the pink that was part of the original paper. And I decided to sort of keep them together. So I took a little tiny piece of the pink flower and glued it right on top of the green piece of paper, and I think it works. Now, as I do this, I can certainly just use my blade running along carefully the edges of my viewfinder, or I could use a pencil and mark my square and cut it out later. It's really up to you. Okay, now is the perfect break for me to share with you my exciting news that I'm going to be teaching at a stamp carving art retreat in Springfield, Vermont this September at the Smiley Manse. It's an idyllic Vermont country farmhouse with a red barn, which is where we will be making all of our wonderful art. There's going to be awesome food, entertainment. It's going to be relaxing, and it's going to be full of stamp carving, printmaking, and all sorts of other wonderful things that we can do with our stamps. And I'm going to leave a link in the description, and I hope I see you there. And you can certainly message me with any questions. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at the pieces that I have come up with that I'm going to primarily try to use. I'll try to use all of them. We'll see how this goes. So here I've taken a few of the swatches out that I think need a little bit more attention. Maybe it's all the white, but I'm going to use my colored pencil to just put in some random color and accents in the little crevices just to bring them more to life and to have more color, because we can always use more color, right? So as my camera tries to figure out what to focus on, because I didn't set the focus before I started filming, I am moving the different pieces around my large moleskin sketchbook to see what is going to work. I'm even pulling from a stash that I have stored in a page protector and just moving pieces around and seeing what works. Once I have them in place, I use some washi tape to tack them into their position so that as I am gluing the pieces down, the other ones that are still unglued or loose don't shift or move out of the way, and then I forget where I had planned to use it. But you can also just take a picture of it with your phone and reference that as well. This particular piece needed just a little bit of colored pencil, so I had to stop what I was doing and do that right then. All right, so I'm ready to glue it down, and I have a lot of glue pad paper that is old paper. You can use magazines or catalogs or newspaper to protect your surface from the additional glue that's going to be spread all around. It just makes it easier to control. And I also use a dry, clean one to rub on top with my hand or my little press, Baron, whatever you have. You can use the lid of a jar. Anything that's going to give you a smooth surface that's going to help you make contact with the paper and the glue and give it a chance to really grab. Now, I'm using a Linco pH adhesive glue. I really like this glue. It has a quick and tight grab, whereas other glues have a longer open time and it gives you a chance to move things around. But this particular glue, I'm really enjoying using it because it's just so, it just is so perfect for what I need. And I'm using a rubber paint shaper. You can get them in packs of 3 or 4 different sizes, and I'll leave a link for those below. But I find that they just work so much better than a brush. I feel like a brush just absorbs so much of the glue into the bristles that it's hard to get out, and I feel like you use more glue, and then of course you have to wash the bristles to get the glue out. I just don't want to contribute more gunk into our water system, so I use this method because I feel like it has a lower footprint. One of the other things that you're going to see me doing is taking the leftover glue that's on the glue paper that I use to protect the sketchbook, and I scrape up the extra glue and use it again because, like I said, I feel like I'm saving a lot of glue by using this paint shaper. It makes it so much easier. And as I'm doing this, I take each glued piece of paper that's wet and I set it aside and I let it air dry. I try not to let them touch each other so that when they're dry, I can stack them all together and use them in my next collage project, because I do that all the time. And these particular pieces of paper that you're seeing me use, I've used them a lot already.